Vekoma, a word that will make half the coaster enthusiast population cringe in terror and the other half drool in delight. That's because Vekoma is divided into two sections, Old Vekoma and New Vekoma. Old Vekoma is infamous for their two most well-known yet despised models, the suspended looping coaster and the boomerang. These models popped up everywhere in chain parks in the 80s and 90s, and many still exist just to be hated or forgotten by enthusiasts. The new, post-bankruptcy Vekoma, on the other hand, is revered for their masterful works. Lek Coaster, Formula, Abyssus, FLI, Howl's Uber Kopf, their Firestorm and Top Gun models, and the soon-to-open Phoenix, which looks to be one of the greatest coasters ever built. However, these new coasters all share one thing in common. None exist in America. While Europe and Asia have gotten all of their new designs and models, Vekoma haven't brought any of their attention to America. In fact, if it wasn't for a few small additions, it would almost feel as though Vekoma forgot about the United States' existence, leaving us with their models from the past. So that begs the question, why hasn't Vekoma built anything major in the United States? And that's what I will be discussing in today's video. And the first one is the most probable, and this is exclusivity. Because of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the industry, many parks do not want to look to international manufacturers to build them a new ride. Now, many people may hear this and say that United States parks will happily work with Intamin and B&M, who happen to be international manufacturers based in Switzerland, but there's a reason behind this. B&M and Intamin have subsidiary locations in the United States, while Vekoma has not had one since their bankruptcy. This means that to build a major coaster in the US, they would have to expend a lot of resources and money to start a US subsidiary, or they would have to expedite all the plans, resources, and parts to manufacture the coaster in America. Now, for smaller family coasters like Dragon Flier or Phoenix, this may not be so hard. But when it comes to a major multi-inverting or even launched coaster, it would be extremely costly, and right now I don't think Vekoma wants to take that risk. This is especially true for US parks though, because as good as Vekoma coasters seem to be, they already have a lot of options, especially with one specific manufacturer. Rocky Mountain Construction is based in the United States, and like Vekoma, offer major coasters for a cheaper cost compared to other manufacturers. This also goes the other way, as RMC haven't built much in other countries yet, as they are still relatively new to break into the international market, and required a special team to build their 4 international coasters, those being Zadra, Untamed, Wildfire, and Hokuge. Before the pandemic, however, the industry was at a high point, especially in America, which may convince Vekoma to expand into the United States if things ever clear up. The second one is a little less likely, and more simple. And this is that Vekoma isn't ready to start constructing in the States yet and will stay in Europe and Asia until they feel they are ready to take on the international market. I can definitely see this theory as they are working on coaster quality over quantity. Also, Vekoma is a lot smaller than they used to be and may not have the resources necessary to carry out such a project. But I also feel that if Vekoma had an opportunity to build a major coaster in the US, I think they would do it, as it would open up the door to one of the biggest countries in the thrill industry. While this prediction certainly has a lot of things against it, I think it is a lot more plausible and realistic than the next two ideas. The first of these two is backlog. Vekoma may have too many projects in Europe and Asia to work in other countries. However, after they built both Dragon Flyer and Phoenix in the last 2 years in the United States, I definitely cannot see this theory. Vekoma hasn't really fallen behind or rushed any of their products, so it doesn't seem like they are overworked, with the only exceptions being FLY at Phantasialand and Abyssus at Energylandia, although I think they had more to do with the pandemic than anything else. The fact that Vekoma was able to build a one-of-a-kind attraction like FLY without much internal issues shows that Vekoma seems to know how to handle and schedule projects properly. Who knows, maybe there is a major Vekoma coaster for the US on hold, but judging the way the industry was affected in the last couple years, I do not think that's the case. Last is the most bleak scenario, but by far the most unlikely, and it's that the US parks do not want to work with Vekoma again. Judging by how their old projects either had terrible reviews or extreme maintenance issues, a lot of their old works don't really operate at the biggest parks anymore and have been scrapped or sent to smaller parks. However, I cannot see this happening. Almost every enthusiast knows how much Vekoma has improved post-bankruptcy, and at the end of the day, we are just enthusiasts. People who work in the industry know a lot more than we do, and I don't think they'd ignore the reformation of Vekoma and how the rides they produce are completely different than the ones they made in the past. Overall, if you had to ask for my take, I would definitely say the first or second scenario is the most possible, as they are realistic and line up with how the industry is recovering from the pandemic and subsequent closures. Personally, I think Vekoma will make a major return to the American frill scene, but it might take a while, even after the first major Vekoma coaster is built here. All in all though, these are just my thoughts. If you have any different ideas or disagree with my scenarios, please let me know in the comments.